Welcome back. The prospect of a biological warfare in the modern era is being hailed as the greatest human-made existential threat since the atom bomb. Naturally, the blockchain may help fix this and rein in the risks. Amy Webb, Future Today Institute founder, CEO, and author of The Genesis Machine, joins Yahoo Finance's Julie Hyman at the South by Southwest conference in Texas.
Morning, Jared. Thank you so much. And indeed, Amy Webb is here sitting right across from me. She's just out with her report that she puts out that looks at all of these future-looking trends, in addition to the Genesis Machine also that is coming out. I want to start with the report.
Sure.
It's a big report. There's a lot in there. You cover a lot of different industries and what could be coming. As you look at it, sort of for our day-to-day lives, what do you feel like the biggest disruptive change could potentially be?
Sure. So this is the 15th anniversary of our Emerging Tech Trends report. We're covering 574 long-term trends that apply to every industry. And I think as it relates to finance and just everyday life, the next year ahead, anything having to do with automation, data collection, data mining, which I know is sort of a longer-term trend in and of itself, but I think it takes on a special new meaning this year because of what's happening in Ukraine, some changes that we're seeing related to crypto, and some regulations coming around DeFi and things like that. So I think that those are big areas that folks should be paying attention to for sure.
And as investors, is this, how do investors need to be thinking about the future, right? Because we have seen some well-known investors, Cathie Wood notably, who tries to look ahead at what's going to be the next big thing. In the short term, it can be tough to hang on while that's happening.
So I really admire Cathie. I think she's an incredible long-range thinker, and she's been right about a lot. Now, to be fair, we're living through what I would call a VUCA time. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that makes it really, really difficult to distinguish between what's a long-term trend, what's the good big bet, and what's the hype right now. And I think right now that hype has a lot to do with NFTs and digital collectibles, which at South by are everywhere. But it's the underlying infrastructure that matters the most. And that is true across the board, whether we're talking about artificial intelligence or synthetic biology, which I know are areas that Cathie pays attention to.
So in what you do, how do you distinguish hype from what's real?
Sure. So we do all of this using data, and we build models. So our trends are not from the gut. They rely on extraordinary amounts of original research. We build models. We use pattern recognition, and that helps us. We also have some criteria that have to be met. And that's what distinguishes and qualifies a trend. And again, for us, the trends that we're tracking tend to be, some of them we've been tracking for 15 years. And the trends aren't enough. It's what you do with them. And this is where a lot of businesses and leaders, I think, get stuck. The trends just get you sort of set back to zero. You use those and you combine those with uncertainty to try to map out what if. So what are the next order impacts? And that's where the magic really happens.
When you talk about data mining and artificial intelligence, which is something that people have been really, I feel like the notch has been turned up on the discussion of that over the past couple of years. As always, there are questions about AI and how it intersects with workforce, right, and workforce replacement and those kinds of things. But not just replacement, how it affects how people do their jobs. And one of the things we pulled out from the report was you sort of rank, I think office workers are at the top in terms of how it's going to affect. Talk us through that a little bit.
Right. So we did a short study trying to assess which jobs were most at risk, but also which ones stand to gain. So I really think that the business community has gotten this wrong over the past 10 years or so. It's not the blue-collar jobs that are going to go away first. It's not truckers. It's not plumbers. And that's because there's too much variability. We've got too many different types of toilets. So there's no finely tuned, finely articulated robot that's going to work on its own yet. It's the knowledge jobs that are going to find that they are either obviated or reduced to some capacity. So that actually has profound implications on law firms, professional services agencies, a lot of consulting groups, which are built using a more pyramid model. We can automate we automate some of our research now when we use AI to do some of it. So again, I think that if you can practice reperception, which is the theme of the report, that's going to help you get a better understanding of what's happening and help you make bigger bets, better bets on the future.
Great, really interesting. We only have a couple minutes left, and we have to talk about the book because it's really interesting, and it's sort of familiar to us now because of what we've all just been through in the vaccines that many of us have received, which was mRNA technology. So when you're talking about synthetic biology, what does that mean?
What is this thing? Yeah. So there's actually one cluster of long-term trends that I think is so game-changing and so important that I wrote a whole book about it. And that's called synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is an umbrella term that sort of describes biotech, CRISPR, different types of biological engineering. And the point of this is to design or redesign organisms to have better, enhanced, different types of purposes. And this is actually not just about creating designer babies. It's about creating different types of raw materials. There's a way to synthetically produce nylon. This unlocks opportunities in the green economy and climate change. It gives us new ways to source food, clean water. There's an enormous amount of potential there. And I really do think that 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about synthetic biology the way we're talking about AI today. So it's a relatively new field. Every big tech investor seems to be in this space. And every big tech company, every big company working on AI seems to also have one foot in SynBio.
Really interesting. We have to leave it there. So people will have to read the book
to
get the full story about that. Amy Webb of the Future Today Institute, thank you so much for being here. Jared, Brian, back to you guys.
Thank you, Julie. Designer babies. I'm going to have to read the book, too.